So with that being said, I'm going to introduce you to Kjord. I'm going to invite him into the group. And we're going to talk a little bit about all of the cosmic elements. At the beginning of the year, I did a workshop with Kjord here at the studio. And he said to me that everything was going to break down. All the systems, as we knew it, were going to like disintegrate. And I thought to myself, like, oh my God, what's that going to look like? That sounds really interesting. And then when all of this started going on, I started thinking to myself, oh my God, Kjord. So I called him up and I was like, what did you mean by that? Like, I want to know, I want to understand why you said what you said. And he was talking about these 3 dates that were going on. So I want to invite him on. I'm going to get him on the main screen.
Hi, everybody. Kjord here. Joe, thank you so much for having me, and so excited that you're doing this on a weekly basis. And this is really interesting because so much kind of started at the beginning of the year. I've always been interested in the stars, always very interested in what was up there, and always felt that we were connected to something so much bigger. And I think more than ever, I think that we are collectively recognizing that. Even though we're, isolated in our individuality, we're all in this together. And 2020 astrologers, and I think people in general, and I would even say each and every one of you, there was this kind of feeling like something was going to happen, like maybe the momentum of everything that was happening on the planet, we just couldn't kind of fit into the old paradigms, the old ways of being. I don't know for you, but I felt like I was just running myself wild into all the doingness, having multiple jobs and never being at home and never having enough time for the things I really wanted for myself. But recognizing what 2020 was going to offer, I mean, just the simple numerology of it, 2020 is 22, the master number 22 is all about building blocks, but also understanding that the messengers of the sky are really the key players that are really happening in the cosmic universe. We're uniting in really powerful ways this year. And they really had to do with the moon. What we know about the moon is we have these 2.5-week cycles where we have a new moon, where everything is kind of calm and meditative. And then we have 2.5 weeks where that moon grows, things begin to expand. That's the time to sign contracts. The water expands within us, the glands expand within us. But really, that's the emotional tides of our system. And then we come upon a full moon, which is the full expression of what that new moon had intentionalized. That's kind of the prequel of what really was really happening this year. Then we get into what we call nodes. So the nodes are usually in a sign for about 18 months. And we're just coming through this final North Node in Cancer, which is really the collective turning home. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but really we're in a full moon, which is kind of the individual experience, but really this collective North Node, which they consider the dragon's head, has been focused on Cancer. So really we've been working the last 18 months, and especially this year, on what does it mean to come home? Where really are our homes? So if we talk about the North Node, we have to talk about the South Node. The South Node has been in the sign Capricorn, which is about what we achieve, how we work, less of our state of being and more about like the constant doing. So it's like each breath continues to make a life. Each day into night offers us kind of a lifestyle or a lifetime. But really, where is our home in the kind of the collapse of the structure? I'm sure you can all agree that we've kind of seen the retail apocalypse happen over the past year, where businesses, our mom and pop stores are closing everywhere. Everywhere has a for lease sign. So that was kind of an old paradigm in itself, that we had to go somewhere to get something. We had to do something to get something. So we're still on this axis. Of course, we're kind of at the last degree of what this is about, like really returning home to find new ways of being inside of our home. So really that collective shift. And again, those nodes happen on eclipses. And all eclipses are really amplified full moons or really augmented new moons. So it's really kind of like shaking the tree, and any of that loose hanging fruit is going to shake down and be released. Really the axis of that really this year was really the day after Christmas, which is when COVID-19 really came into being in kind of a big way, and then really hitting the United States for the full moon eclipse, where our biggest and most powerful and most influential planets united in the sky for that full moon, which was actually January 10th. I don't know if you can look back to find out where you were, but something really big and really significant would have happened to you on a personal level, but then also this is really happening on a collective level. The 3 major planets that we're talking about are Jupiter and Saturn. These are personal planets because they're closer to the Earth, closer to the self. In astrology, the Earth is the self. Jupiter would be considered merciful and our best friend, and really begins to expand everything it comes in contact with. but it does not discriminate. And we'll get there in a second. Saturn is our teacher. Saturn teaches us step by step. After 30 years, we can begin to master something. So they say we as humans really live a Saturn life. And if you know anything about astrology, every 30 years, we go through a cycle of mastery. So really, in your lifetime, you'll pretty much master 3 signs. And if you were to say that you were born the first degree of a sign the day you were born, literally when you're 30 years old, you would naturally progress to the next sign, and then come menopause or midlife crisis for men around 60, 55 to 60 would be your second Saturn returns. But if you really look at your life, around 30, something big and significant happened. That's Saturn, what Saturn teaches us. The last planet involved in that triad around that eclipse would be Pluto. Pluto is actually the furthest planet, or it can be considered something else. But what Pluto shows up in our charts is our personal power through transformation. Pluto is not surface. Pluto is very deep. Pluto is really like underneath the surface. And usually when you're connecting with Pluto, something has to die. Something is revealed, and to move forward, you have to let go of something. So those 3 planets in a very big way united in the sky with the full moon eclipse. So it's like a full illumination on this massive transformation that was going to happen collectively. That was the beginning of the shakedown. We have 3 very significant dates where that masterful planet, that guru planet, Jupiter, is uniting with Pluto, and we just came through that. So April 5th, we just came through that day. So this last weekend, Saturday evening, Sunday day, we just came through that huge power surge. And because they're uniting in the sky in Capricorn, and once again, that sign is about achievement. It's about our work. It's about who we are in the collective, like how we're seen in the public. These are big shifts. And because it's happening 3 times, it just happened. It's going to happen around summer solstice, the end of June, and it's going to happen once again in November. So these are big shakedowns of power. It's personal power, and it's really looking at like, what am I doing as opposed to who am I being? So if you're really going to take some self-analysis, which I'm sure we're all sitting in, really the mirror is right in front of us because we can't leave our 4 walls. Who really are we when we're not in the doingness and we're just in the state of being? So when I talked to Joe at the beginning of the year and said, look, I've got to do this astrology workshop, I called it generations because like, oh, this year is really the year that will define a generation. And it's moved really beyond a generation to defining an era, and really is going to be the cornerstone of really the future of this planet and the future of humanity. And I really can't help but think that we chose to be here at this time to really be that shift and honor everything that has come before us with our ancestors, our grandparents, you know, any indigenous tribes, what was happening on the earth. And we really are the bridge, I think, to what this earth is going to become. But we have to consolidate ourselves back into a state of beingness to allow us to move forward. And that's really the work that needs to be done. On the front of my sheet, I wrote, and then I'll kind of close this segment, the me within me I see is the one the world it will experience me be in 2020. And that was kind of the theme of the booklet that I handed to everyone. And I keep coming back to this, and I can't even take credit for this. It was just really something that came through to me. And I would love to share that with each and every one of you, that hopefully the you that is you that we all see gets to be the you that we all get to experience in this year of ultimate collapse. And it's not, you know, Joe's been talking about physically. This is not, I mean, it is a physical collapse, but it's really an old paradigm collapse. And really we're in our homes to provide that safety and protection while literally everything is just tumbling down all around us. So really the choice is, how do we navigate these times? And I really do believe that we have, that's what is within us to really navigate. It's kind of letting go of the old stuff, the old ways. And that's really what this full moon is about.
Thank you so much for all that information. I know that you've been teaching Kundalini for so many years, and I've experienced you on many occasions. We've taught cleanses together. And I really want you to share a little bit about how you've been using your Kundalini practice to keep yourself grounded and keep your energy kind of centered at this time.
Yes, great, of course. For me, Kundalini, when I very first found it, was just something that took me back to myself. It really is the practice that really holds a mirror right up in front of you, because the practice is done with your eyes closed to really see who you are really in the dark. And in the darkness of closing the physical eyes, you get to really see who you are within the pressures of each posture. And I can't say that each of them are the easiest, but really what it does is it just suggests or initiates different flavors of the self to come through. And Kundalini is a practice that works directly on the nervous system, so it can be quite triggering because the nervous system is our experience. It's the information that comes into our system. It's really, it's almost like telephone wires, really like connecting everybody together. It's connecting your whole body together. So what it does is it just sends energy through the nervous system, through those different rivers. And especially in a time where there's so much that's being downloaded, it's so important to clean those rivers of communication and clean our energy, especially when we're kind of like stuck inside. Also the glandular system. So Kundalini is known for working the nervous system and the glands. The glands are obviously the conductors of the valves of the emotional temperament, secreting the hormones, the peptides, everything in our system. So it's really balancing kind of the waters of our system and kind of the fire or the electrical current of our system, which is really both so important for this time. I just can't help but think, like, you know, maybe we don't know necessarily what's happening right now, but hindsight is really going to be 2020 when we look back on this time and be like, that's exactly what was going on. For me, Kundalini is a practice just to really keep those pathways open, to be as clear as possible about the happenings of the time. There's just so much about the practice that really amplifies you as the incarnate of the universe.
So what you're saying is that you're really feeling like you're surrendering into these connections, like connecting your body to some of the alignment in the universe. And it's about this feeling of like letting go all the time, bringing in, using the energy, moving it through your body, and just not allowing yourself to get stuck in any particular feeling or emotion, but helping your body to move through those waves. So do you do that with breath? What are your
So for me, what Kundalini has taught me, like I was kind of speaking about before, there's postures, there's asanas, and some of them are very strange. Some of them you're in for quite a period of time, but it's really how you navigate that with your breath, which is the spirit. And they say that the breath is the king or the queen of the mind. You know, as you shift your breath, you shift your mind. And when you shift your mind, you shift your body. So it is this perfect synergistic balance between the three, but really the ruler of that is the breath. So what we learn about the breath is we inhale life and we exhale death. So right there, we have a beautiful cycle of everything that's happening. And I can't help but think that this time that we're in is just one of those longer, maybe a little bit more challenging postures, but it really is like, are we going to struggle through it? Am I going to struggle through this posture? Am I going to like break down my heart? Am I going to collapse, or am I going to stick with it? Try to see as clearly as possible in the dark. So there's really metaphors to what the Kundalini practice has offered me that are really applicable to the times.
How do we go through those layers so that we can kind of break through? Obviously, a lot of us are experiencing our pain body at the moment with fear, with frustration, with sickness, with whatever's going on. How do we break through that and get to like the lighter bodies?
The Kundalini practice for me is one of the best practices to just come to a place of listening, even in the chaos, even when you feel the body might be screaming in discomfort. Those are the moments to really connect and kind of shift the gaze to something else. Otherwise, the body's constantly ruling you. If you shift kind of the perspective to the breath, you end up shifting the perspective of the body. Obviously, with cleansing, it has to do with food. So what are the addictions of like our food? What are the addictions of our mind? They're just walls and just barriers. And I do believe the spirit of the breath is really what can connect us and shift that.
Like, I think that, you know, as we go through this like cosmic storm that's happening at the moment, and we're utilizing cleansing as a tool to kind of silence and observe, to listen in, to go into this state of deep listening, and then having the layer of the tools of Kundalini or meditation to lay on top, we get to kind of like break through some of those barriers and get to see more and listen to more of the information that's coming through for us, so that when we get through this period, we'll be able to know a little bit more about ourselves, work a little bit deeper with our own energy and our own purpose.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like this is the ultimate contraction. And I feel like each day we're getting contracted just a little bit more. And, you know, the kind of the warnings are, don't go there. They're giving tickets there. Really stay inside. Really like prioritize your list so you're only going out once. So really, as we begin to slough off all of the doingness, everything that we're kind of used to in terms of like checking off lists and leaving our house and dropping the keys and running this errand and run that errand, we're just really like collecting all the parts of ourselves that we constantly give away this is the ultimate charging station. It's like full-on cosmic reset.
So I've got a question here. What are astrologists saying? What's next about this new world? So we talk about 2020 being the breakdown, like then what?
Breakdown to breakthrough, you know? And they really call this like the spiritual evolution. So again, we've got those 3 dates. Summer solstice is going to be really powerful once again, because we've got more than 5 planets that are retrograde. So even with that amplification of the sun's light, as the sun turns to become a little bit more dark, we get that other opportunity to really go back in and be like, did we kind of learn what we learned in spring? And again, that's really the axis of the sun that we really deal with when it comes to astrology, is summer and winter solstice, when the sun pivots, and then also the equinoxes. And if you look at really any religious holidays, they're always around those times. So really look at these times for the big shifts. This one was on equinox, right? The next one's going to be summer solstice, when the sun turns. And then we have it in fall with a Mercury in retrograde. And then obviously in Scorpio season, which is all about death and transformation.
So thank you, Kjord. I really appreciate you coming in and supporting the group.
Thank you.
Look forward to